I had ironed my blouse twice that morning. That might sound like nothing to you, but at 62, your hands know when something matters. They shake a little. They fumble with buttons. And so I stood at my ironing board at 7 a.m., pressing the same cotton collar over and over, trying to make myself presentable for a party I wasn't sure I was welcome at. Oliver's first birthday, my only grandchild. I had bought him a gift weeks in advance, a hand-stitched teddy bear from a little shop on Broughton Street, the kind Richard and I used to wander through on Saturday afternoons before he got sick. The bear had a blue ribbon around its neck. I thought Oliver might like the texture. Babies love texture. I remembered that from when Tyler was small, the way he used to rub the corner of his blanket between his fingers while he nursed. Tyler, my boy. I try not to think too hard about who he used to be. It only makes the distance hurt worse. The drive to Palmetto Crossing took 22 minutes. I know because I counted every one of them, my fingers tight on the steering wheel, the gift bag sitting on the passenger seat like a silent passenger. The subdivision gates opened slowly, and I passed through into a world of beige stucco and landscaped lawns. Everything neat, everything new, everything lacking the soul of old oak roots and wraparound porches. I could hear the party before I saw it. Laughter, children squealing. A DJ playing something soft and acoustic, the kind of music Vanessa always called intentional. I parked at the far end of the lot, checked my lipstick in the rearview mirror, and told myself to breathe. You are his grandmother. You have a right to be here. The clubhouse garden was a dream of white tents and fairy lights, even in daylight. I counted at least 40 guests, young mothers with strollers, men in linen shirts holding craft beers, a photographer circling like a shark. At the center of it all, a 3-tier cake shaped like a safari animal, and beside it, a banner in gold letters. Oliver's Wild One. I clutched my gift bag and stepped through the gate. That's when I saw Tyler. He was standing near the drink table, laughing at something a man in sunglasses said. My heart lifted, just for a moment, because he looked so much like Richard. The same broad shoulders. The same way he tilted his head when he was amused. I raised my hand to wave, and his eyes flickered toward me. He saw me. I know he saw me. And then he looked away. Before I could take another step, a hand landed on my chest. Not hard. Just enough to stop me. I looked down at the French manicure, the diamond tennis bracelet, the slim wrist that somehow contained more authority than a locked door. Vanessa, she was wearing white. Of course she was. A linen dress that probably cost more than my monthly groceries, her hair blown out in perfect waves, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. Margaret. She said my name like it was a disease. I wasn't expecting you. I was invited, I managed. Tyler sent me the details last month. That was before. She tilted her head, performative concern dripping from every pore. Before the incident. The incident, she meant the apple. 1 week ago, I had visited their home to see Oliver. Maria, the nanny, had let me in. Vanessa was at a yoga class. I played with my grandson on the living room floor, and when he got fussy, I pulled out a sliced apple from my purse, an apple from my own backyard tree, the one Richard planted when Tyler was born. Oliver loved it. He gummed at the slices, laughing. When Vanessa came home, she screamed at me for 15 minutes. That apple wasn't certified organic, Margaret. I have rules. I have a system. Do you have any idea what pesticides can do to a developing brain? I tried to explain. My tree was never sprayed. I had raised a child on that fruit. But she didn't listen. She never listens. And now here she was, standing between me and my grandson's birthday party, her voice rising just loud enough for the nearby guests to hear. I was very clear, Vanessa announced, turning slightly so the audience could appreciate her performance. You gave my son non-organic fruit. You ignored my rules. You put his health at risk. She pressed a hand to her chest. As a mother, I have to protect my child, even from family. I felt the heat rise to my cheeks. Guests were staring. A woman with a stroller whispered to her friend. The photographer lowered his camera, sensing drama. "Vanessa, please." "You're not welcome here, Margaret." Her voice was silk over steel. "Not until you publicly apologize for what you did. Not until you acknowledge that my boundaries matter." I looked past her, searched for Tyler. He was still by the drink table, still looking away. His jaw was tight, his hand frozen around a beer bottle, but he didn't move. He didn't say a word. My own son. To my left, I heard a familiar laugh, low, delighted, cruel. Diane Carter stood beneath a white tent, a champagne flute in her hand, watching me like I was the evening's entertainment. She raised her glass in a mock toast. I don't remember walking back to my car. I remember the heat, the way the asphalt shimmered. The sound of the party continuing behind me, music, laughter, life, without me. I sat in the driver's seat with the gift bag still in my hands and cried. Not loud. I'm too old for loud. Just quiet tears that fell onto the blue ribbon of Oliver's teddy bear, soaking into the fabric. I thought about Tyler at 5 years old, running into my arms after his first day of kindergarten. I thought about him at 16, asking me to teach him how to slow dance before prom. I thought about him at 28, weeping at his father's funeral, gripping my hand so hard I thought my bones would crack. Where did that boy go? Who took him from me? I wiped my eyes, turned the key in the ignition. I was ready to drive home, pour myself a glass of wine, and accept that I had lost my son to a woman who cared more about appearances than love. I was ready to disappear. And then someone knocked on my window. I turned, startled. A young woman stood outside my car. Dark hair pulled back, simple clothes, nervous eyes. Maria, the nanny. She glanced over her shoulder toward the party, then leaned close to the glass. "Mrs. Hayes," she whispered, "please don't go. There's something you need to know." I stared at Maria through the glass, my hand still frozen on the ignition key. She looked terrified. Her eyes kept darting back toward the clubhouse, toward the white tents and the laughter, like she expected someone to come running after her at any moment. Her fingers trembled against my window. I rolled it down. "Mrs. Hayes," she said again, quieter this time. "Please, I need to talk to you, but not here." "Maria, I don't understand." "There's a coffee shop on Whitaker Street, the one with the green awning. Do you know it?" I nodded slowly. "Richard and I used to go there on Sunday mornings. They made a pecan Danish he loved." "Meet me there in 20 minutes. Maria stepped back from the car. "Please, it's about Oliver." Before I could respond, she turned and walked quickly across the parking lot, disappearing around the side of the building. For a long moment, I just sat there, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. What could she possibly need to tell me? Maria had always been kind to me. Quiet, respectful, the sort of young woman who looked you in the eye when she spoke. She was from Brazil, I knew that much, working her way through nursing school, sending money home to her mother. Vanessa had hired her because she was affordable, which I understood to mean she could pay her less than an American girl. I pulled out of the parking lot with my hands shaking. The drive to Whitaker Street took 12 minutes. I found a spot across from the coffee shop and sat in my car, watching the door, wondering if I was a fool for coming. Maybe Maria just wanted to comfort me. Maybe she felt bad about what happened at the gate and wanted to apologize on the family's behalf. But the look in her eyes hadn't been sympathy. It had been fear. At exactly 3:15, I saw her slip through the coffee shop door, glancing behind her one more time before stepping inside. I took a breath, grabbed my purse, and followed. The shop was half empty. A few college students on laptops, a man reading a newspaper, the smell of roasted beans and warm pastry hanging in the air. Maria had chosen a table in the far corner, her back to the wall, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea she hadn't touched. I sat down across from her. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. "I wasn't sure you would." "You said it was about Oliver." I kept my voice steady, though my pulse was anything but. "Is he all right? Is he sick?" Maria shook her head. "He's not sick, Mrs. Hayes. But he's not. He's not being taken care of. Not the way you think. The words landed like stones in still water. What do you mean? Maria looked down at her tea. Her jaw tightened, and for a moment I thought she might lose her nerve. But then she lifted her eyes to mine, and I saw something there I recognized. Guilt. The kind that eats at you when you've stayed silent too long. Vanessa is not who she pretends to be, Maria said. The organic food, the attachment parenting, the perfect mother thing, it's all for Instagram, for her followers, for the image. I felt my stomach clench. Maria, when the cameras are off, she doesn't care. Maria's voice cracked. She leaves Oliver in his crib for hours with an iPad playing cartoons. She tells me to handle everything, the feeding, the changing, the baths, while she's on her phone or at the gym, and the food. She shook her head bitterly. Mrs. Hayes, last week I came back from class and found Oliver in his high chair eating chicken nuggets from McDonald's. Vanessa was on a video call with her trainer. She didn't even look up. I couldn't speak. The image hit me like a fist. My grandson, my Oliver, alone in a high chair with fast food while his mother ignored him. The same woman who had screamed at me for giving him an apple from my own tree. She screamed at me, I managed. She told me I was poisoning him. I know. Maria's eyes were wet now. I was there. I heard her. And I wanted to say something, but I was scared. I need this job, Mrs. Hayes. I need the money for school. But after what she did to you today, in front of everyone, she wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. I can't stay quiet anymore. I reached across the table and took her hand. It was cold. There's more, Maria whispered. Isn't there? She nodded. The trainer, Connor. She practically spat the name. He's not just her trainer. They've been having an affair for 6 months, maybe longer. The coffee shop seemed to tilt. I gripped the edge of the table. Are you sure? I've seen them, Mrs. Hayes. In the house. When Tyler's at work. Maria reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. Her fingers trembled as she opened the photo gallery. I didn't want to take these, but I knew someday someone would need proof. She turned the phone toward me. The first photo showed Vanessa and Connor on the living room couch. His arm was around her. Her head was on his shoulder. They were laughing at something on the television. The second showed them kissing in the kitchen. Oliver's high chair was visible in the corner, empty. The third was a screenshot of a text conversation. Connor had sent Vanessa a picture of a silver pickup truck with a massive red bow on the hood. Her response, "You deserve it, baby. Early Christmas present. Don't tell anyone where you got it." $28,000, Maria said quietly. I looked up the model. She paid for it with the credit card Tyler gave her. The one linked to your family's account. My family's account. The trust. Richard's trust. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The air in the coffee shop felt thick, wrong, like I was underwater and couldn't find the surface. I thought about the monthly statements I received, the ones I'd stopped reading carefully because Tyler told me Vanessa was good with money. I thought about the allowance, $4,500 a month, meant for my grandson's future, funneled instead into a truck for my daughter-in-law's lover. She banned me for an apple, I heard myself say. My voice sounded distant, strange. She humiliated me in front of 50 people, and all this time. I'm sorry, Mrs. Hayes. Maria squeezed my hand. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I looked at the photos again, at my grandson's empty high chair, at the truck bought with my husband's money, at the woman who had stolen my son and poisoned my family with lies. Something shifted inside me. The grief was still there. It would always be there, but beneath it, something harder was forming. Colder, the kind of feeling that doesn't cry, the kind that plans. Maria, I said slowly, you mentioned she's planning a slideshow for the party, for Oliver's birthday. Maria blinked. Yes, a video. Oliver's first year. She's been working on it for weeks. It's supposed to play during her toast. And there's a projector? Yes, connected to her laptop. Why? I looked at the photos on her phone one more time. Then I looked at Maria. "Because I'm not leaving," I said, "and I'm not staying quiet." I straightened in my chair, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt like myself again. "I'm going to apologize to Vanessa, publicly, just like she wants, and then I'm going to wait for the perfect moment." Maria stared at me. "Mrs. Hayes, what are you going to do?" I smiled. It was not a kind smile. "I'm going to show everyone who she really is." I spent 3 days preparing to lie. That might shock you. I was raised Baptist, married in a white church on Victory Drive, taught my son that honesty was the foundation of a good life. Richard used to say that a man's word was the only currency that never inflated. I believe that. I still do. But some situations require a different kind of truth. The morning I was meant to apologize, I woke at 5 a.m. and couldn't go back to sleep. I lay in bed watching the ceiling fan turn slow circles in the gray light, rehearsing the words I would say. Each syllable felt like a splinter working its way under my skin. "I'm sorry, Vanessa. I was wrong. I should have respected your boundaries." I got up, made coffee I didn't drink, and stood in front of the hallway mirror in my robe. The woman staring back at me looked older than I remembered. When had my eyes gotten so tired? When had the lines around my mouth deepened into parentheses of grief? Richard would have known what to do. Richard always knew. But Richard was gone, and I was alone, and my grandson was trapped in a house with a woman who fed him fast food while kissing another man. I had to do this. At 9:15, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I knew the voice the moment she spoke. "Margaret." Diane Carter's tone was honeyed poison. "I'm calling to confirm our little arrangement." I gripped the phone tighter. "I'll be there at noon, just like Vanessa requested." "Wonderful." I could hear her smiling. "You know, I have to say, I'm impressed. I didn't think you had it in you. Most women your age would have too much pride to admit they were wrong." Most women my age haven't spent 62 years learning when to fight and when to wait. "I just want to see my grandson," I said quietly. "Of course you do." Diane's voice dripped with condescension. "And you will, as long as you behave. Vanessa has agreed to supervised visits, 1 hour per week, with me or her present at all times. Isn't that generous?" Generous. She had stolen my son, humiliated me in public, neglected my grandchild, and was sleeping with another man on my family's dime. And I was supposed to be grateful for 1 supervised hour. "Very generous," I managed. "Thank you, Diane." "See you at noon, Margaret. Don't be late. And do try to dress appropriately. Vanessa's neighbors are very observant." The line went dead. I set the phone down carefully, as if it might explode. Then I went upstairs and put on my nicest dress, the navy blue one with the pearl buttons, the one I wore to Richard's memorial service. It seemed fitting. Today, I would bury another piece of myself. The drive to Palmetto Crossing felt longer this time. Every red light stretched into eternity. I passed the subdivision gates at 11:47 and parked on the street, not in the driveway. Vanessa had specified that in her text. Apparently, my car was not aesthetically consistent with their neighborhood. An 8-year-old Honda Accord, not aesthetically consistent. I walked up the flagstone path with my hands clasped in front of me like a penitent approaching an altar. The lawn was immaculate. The bushes were trimmed into perfect spheres. A decorative sign by the door read, "The Hayes Family" in curling script, and beneath it, Est 2021. As if my son's family had begun the day he married her. The front door opened before I could knock. Vanessa stood in the doorway, radiant in a cream-colored cashmere sweater and tailored slacks. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like she was about to host a segment on morning television. Behind her, seated on the living room couch like a duchess awaiting tribute, Diane Carter sipped from a ceramic mug. She didn't bother to stand. "Margaret." Vanessa smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for having me." I stepped inside. The house smelled like vanilla candles and something else, something sharp and chemical, like the air freshener they use in new cars. There were fresh flowers on the entry table. A photography book about Tuscany sat at an artful angle. Everything perfect, everything staged. "Tyler wanted to be here," Vanessa said, gesturing toward the living room. "But he had a meeting. You know how busy he is." I nodded. I didn't believe her for a second. We settled into the living room, Vanessa in an armchair, Diane on the couch, me standing in the center like a defendant awaiting sentencing. Through the back window, I could see the patio where Maria sometimes took Oliver to play. The high chair was visible in the kitchen. "Well," Diane said, setting down her mug, "we're waiting, Margaret." I took a breath. This was the moment. The words I had rehearsed 100 times. The lie that would buy me access, buy me time, buy me the chance to save my grandson. I looked at Vanessa and began. "I owe you an apology," I said. My voice was steady, though my heart was screaming. "What I did was wrong. I brought food into your home without your permission. I ignored your rules. I put my own judgment above yours as Oliver's mother." I paused, letting the words sink in. I was disrespectful, and I'm sorry. Vanessa tilted her head, studying me like a cat watching a mouse decide whether to run. "And?" she prompted. "And I understand now that you were only protecting your son, that your boundaries come from love. I should have honored that." I lowered my gaze. "I hope you can forgive me." The silence stretched. Then Diane let out a delighted little laugh. "Well," she said, "that wasn't so hard, was it?" Vanessa rose from her chair and walked toward me. For a terrible moment, I thought she might embrace me. Instead, she placed a hand on my shoulder, light, possessive, condescending. "I forgive you, Margaret." Her voice was magnanimous and hollow. "We all make mistakes. The important thing is that you've learned." "Thank you," I whispered. "Now." She stepped back, smoothing her sweater. "I think it's time you saw Oliver, don't you? Maria." Footsteps from upstairs. A moment later, Maria appeared on the landing, carrying my grandson in her arms. Oliver. He had grown so much in just 2 weeks. His cheeks were rounder, his hair thicker, his eyes, Richard's eyes, my Tyler's eyes, bright and curious. He was wearing a little blue onesie with a sailboat on the chest. Maria brought him down the stairs and placed him in my arms. The weight of him. I had forgotten. Or maybe I had made myself forget because remembering hurt too much. But now he was here, warm and solid and real, his small fingers reaching up to touch my face. He smelled like baby shampoo and something sweeter, something that was just him. "Hi, sweetheart," I murmured. "Hi, my Oliver. Grandma's here." He gurgled and grabbed at my pearl buttons. I looked up. Vanessa was watching me with a satisfied expression, the look of a woman who believed she had won. Diane had returned to her coffee, already bored by my submission. And Maria. Maria stood at the base of the stairs, her eyes meeting mine for just a moment. A silent message passed between us. Not yet, but soon. I held my grandson close and pressed my lips to his forehead. "I promise you," I whispered, so quietly no one else could hear. "I promise you, baby, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to protect you, no matter what it costs me." Oliver laughed and tugged at my necklace. I smiled, and inside, where no one could see, I began to sharpen my knife. I became a ghost in my own family. For 2 weeks after my apology, I did exactly what Vanessa expected. I arrived for my supervised visits precisely on time, never early, never late. I sat where Diane told me to sit. I held Oliver only when given permission. I smiled, I nodded, I thanked them for their generosity, and I watched. I watched the way Vanessa's attention drifted to her phone every few minutes, her thumbs moving in quick bursts of text. I watched how she handed Oliver to Maria the moment he fussed, barely glancing at him, before returning to her screen. I watched Diane refill her wine glass at 2 in the afternoon and laugh at jokes that weren't funny. They thought I was broken, tamed, a sad old woman grateful for scraps. They had no idea. Every Tuesday and Thursday, after my visits ended, I drove to the coffee shop on Whitaker Street. Maria would arrive 20 minutes later, always through the back entrance, always checking over her shoulder. We would sit at the same corner table, and she would show me what she had gathered. Videos, mostly. One showed Oliver alone in his crib, an iPad propped against the bars, playing cartoons at full volume. The timestamp said 10:47 a.m. Vanessa was visible through the doorway, doing yoga in the living room with her headphones on. Another showed the kitchen. Oliver in his high chair, a half-eaten container of French fries on the tray. Vanessa's voice, off camera. "Just finish those, okay? Mommy has a call." A third was darker, literally. The nursery at night, lit only by a nightlight. Oliver crying. Maria's voice, soothing, gentle. And then Vanessa's voice from downstairs, sharp and irritated. "Maria, can you handle that? I'm on with Connor." Connor. His name appeared everywhere once I started looking. Maria showed me screenshots from Vanessa's phone, text messages she had glimpsed when Vanessa left her device unlocked, heart emojis, plans to meet at the gym, a photo of a hotel room in Charleston with the caption, "Can't wait for next weekend, baby." I wrote everything down in a notebook I kept hidden in my nightstand drawer. Dates, times, details. The same way Richard used to document his business dealings. Meticulous, thorough, unassailable. Richard. I thought about him constantly during those weeks, what he would say, what he would do. He had never liked Vanessa, though he was too polite to say so directly. "There's something missing behind her eyes," he told me once, after their first Christmas together, "like she's always performing." I hadn't listened. I should have listened. On the third Thursday, I pulled out the trust documents. I had kept them in Richard's old filing cabinet, the oak one in his study that still smelled like his pipe tobacco. The folder was thick: wills, amendments, investment summaries, correspondence with our attorney. I spread the papers across the dining room table and read them with fresh eyes. The Hayes Family Trust, established June 2015. Assets, $2. $3 million at the time of Richard's death, now closer to $2. $1 million after market fluctuations and disbursements. Primary trustee, Margaret Ann Hayes. Beneficiaries, Tyler Richard Hayes and his lawful descendants. And there, on page 14, the clause Richard had insisted on over our attorney's objections. The morality clause. Any beneficiary who engages in conduct that is fraudulent, criminal, or materially harmful to the integrity of the family unit, including but not limited to infidelity, financial abuse, or neglect of minor dependents, may be removed from the trust at the sole discretion of the trustee. I read it 3 times, then I read it again. Richard's voice echoed in my memory. "A trust isn't just about money, Maggie. It's about values. If someone betrays this family, they don't deserve a dime." I had thought he was being dramatic, old-fashioned, harsh. Now I understood. I pulled up the bank statements on my laptop, the account linked to Tyler's monthly allowance. $4,500, deposited on the first of every month, meant for Oliver's future, for stability, for family. I traced the withdrawals. March, $3,200 to Elite Fitness, Connor's gym. April, $28,000 to Savannah Auto Group, the truck. May, $4,100 to a jewelry store on Abercorn Street, a watch, I assumed, for him. June, $2,800 to a boutique hotel in Charleston. The weekend Maria had mentioned. In 6 months, Vanessa had funneled nearly $50,000 of my family's money to her lover. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark for a long time. The next Tuesday, Maria arrived at the coffee shop with a folder tucked under her arm. "The party," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "It's this Saturday, Oliver's actual birthday." I nodded. I had received the invitation, a formal one this time, hand-delivered by Tyler himself. He had stood on my porch looking uncomfortable, avoiding my eyes. "Vanessa wanted me to give you this," he said. She thought, "After everything, you should be there." I had thanked him warmly, told him I wouldn't miss it. He didn't stay for coffee. Now Maria leaned forward, her voice low. "She's planning a big toast, a speech about motherhood, about sacrifice." Her lip curled slightly. "She's been practicing in front of the mirror." "And the slideshow?" "Yes, Oliver's first year. Photos, video clips. It's going to play on the projector during her speech." Maria paused. "The projector is connected to her laptop. She's been editing the video all week." I felt the pieces clicking into place. The projector, the laptop, the captive audience of friends, family, neighbors, all gathered to celebrate Vanessa's performance of perfect motherhood. "Maria," I said slowly, "do you still have all the evidence? The videos, the photos, the screenshots?" She nodded. "I need you to put them on a USB drive. Everything. The neglect, the fast food, the affair, the texts, all of it." Maria stared at me. "Mrs. Hayes, what are you planning?" I reached across the table and took her hand. "Vanessa wants to give a speech about being a perfect mother," I said. "I'm going to let her, and then I'm going to show everyone the truth." Maria's eyes widened. For a moment I thought she might refuse, might tell me it was too risky, too cruel, too dangerous. Instead, she squeezed my hand. "I'll have it ready by Friday," she whispered. Friday evening, Maria met me at my house for the first time. She looked nervous crossing the threshold, glancing around at the old furniture, the framed photos on the walls, the evidence of a life lived long before she was born. I made her tea and we sat in the living room, the curtains drawn. She handed me the USB drive. It was small, black, lighter than I expected. "Everything's on there," Maria said, organized by date. The videos play automatically in sequence. I turned it over in my palm. Such a small thing, such enormous power. "Maria," I said quietly, "you understand what will happen when I do this. Vanessa will know you helped me. She'll fire you." Maria nodded. "I know. You could lose your reference, your income, everything you've worked for." "I know." She met my eyes. "But Oliver, he deserves better, Mrs. Hayes. He deserves someone who actually loves him, and I can't keep pretending I don't see what I see." I stood up and crossed to the mantel, where Richard's photo watched over the room. "My husband used to say that courage isn't the absence of fear," I said. "It's deciding that something else matters more." I looked at the USB drive in my hand. Then I looked at Maria. "Tomorrow," I said, "we end this." I wore red, not bright red, nothing so bold as to draw attention before I was ready. A deep burgundy, the color of old wine, of dried roses, of blood that has had time to settle. I chose it deliberately. I wanted to feel powerful. I wanted to feel like the woman I used to be before grief softened my edges and loneliness made me forget my own spine. The USB drive sat in my pocket, small and heavy as a secret. I arrived at Palmetto Crossing at exactly 2 o'clock. The gates opened smoothly, and I followed the line of cars toward the clubhouse, my hands steady on the wheel. The garden was even more elaborate than Oliver's first party. White tents billowing in the afternoon breeze, tables draped in linen, an ice sculpture shaped like the number 1 slowly melting in the Georgia heat. Vanessa had outdone herself. I parked at the far end of the lot near a catering van and sat for a moment with my eyes closed. I thought about Richard, about Tyler as a little boy, about Oliver's face when I held him, the way his fingers curled around my thumb like he knew, somehow, that I was safe. "For you," I thought. "All of this is for you." I stepped out of the car. The first person I saw was Diane. She was holding court near the champagne table, dressed in cream silk, laughing too loudly at something a younger woman had said. When she spotted me, her smile flickered, just for a moment, before settling into something resembling warmth. "Margaret!" She air-kissed both my cheeks. How wonderful that you could make it. Vanessa will be so pleased. I wouldn't miss my grandson's birthday, I said. Of course not. Her eyes traveled over my dress, assessing. What a bold color choice. Thank you. I moved past her before she could say anything else. The garden was crowded, at least 60 guests, maybe more. I recognized some faces from the neighborhood, from Tyler's office, from the endless Instagram photos Vanessa posted of her village. They clustered in groups, sipping drinks, admiring the decorations, performing the rituals of upper-middle-class celebration. And there, in the center of it all, stood Vanessa. She was wearing white again, a flowing dress that caught the sunlight, a flower crown nestled in her carefully curled hair. She looked like a bride or a saint or something from a magazine spread about conscious motherhood. Oliver sat on her hip, for the photos, I assumed, and she bounced him gently while accepting compliments. Vanessa, you look amazing. This party is incredible. You're such a devoted mom, I don't know how you do it. I watched her drink it in, her smile wide and practiced. Then her eyes found me. Margaret. She crossed the lawn with Oliver still on her hip, her dress trailing through the grass. I'm so glad you came, really. Thank you for inviting me. She leaned in, lowering her voice conspiratorially. I know things have been complicated between us, but I want you to know I've forgiven you, truly. Today is about family. Yes, I said, smiling. It is. She patted my arm and moved on to greet another guest. I let out a slow breath. Soon. The projector was set up near the main tent. I had noticed it immediately upon arriving. A portable screen on a tripod, a laptop resting on a small table beside it, cables running to a speaker system. Vanessa's first-year slideshow was queued up, ready to play during her toast. I waited for my moment. It came 45 minutes into the party when Vanessa called Maria over to take Oliver for a diaper change. The crowd was distracted. A group of children had started a game near the ice sculpture, and several parents rushed over to prevent disaster. Diane was arguing with the caterer about something. Tyler was on his phone by the bar. And Connor, I spotted him near the back of the garden, leaning against a tree in workout clothes that cost more than my first car. He caught Vanessa's eye across the crowd and winked. I wanted to vomit. Instead, I walked calmly toward the projector table. The laptop was unlocked. Vanessa's slideshow was minimized, a video editing program still open. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the USB drive, and inserted it into the port. My fingers trembled. A dialog box appeared. USB drive detected. Open folder? I clicked yes, copied the video file, the one Maria had assembled, the one containing every piece of evidence, to the desktop. Then I opened Vanessa's slideshow settings and changed the source file. It took less than 90 seconds. I removed the USB drive, slipped it back into my pocket, and walked away. No one had seen. I found a seat near the edge of the tent and accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my temples, but my face was serene. Patience, I told myself. Almost time. At 4 o'clock, Vanessa took the microphone. The crowd gathered. Children were shushed. Phones came out to record. Tyler appeared at his wife's side, looking handsome and hollow, his hand resting on the small of her back. Thank you all for being here, Vanessa began, her voice carrying across the garden. 1 year ago, my life changed forever. I became a mother. She paused, letting the weight of the words sink in. I won't pretend it's been easy. Motherhood is sacrifice. It's sleepless nights and endless worry. It's putting someone else's needs before your own, every single day, without complaint. I gripped my champagne glass. But Oliver. She pressed a hand to her heart. Oliver is worth every moment. He's my world, my purpose. Everything I do for him. Behind her, the projector flickered to life. The slideshow was supposed to begin. Soft music, baby photos, heartwarming clips of Oliver's first steps. Instead, the screen went dark for a moment. Then the first video started. It showed Oliver alone in his crib, crying, an iPad propped against the bars. The sound was unmistakable, wailing, desperate, ignored. Vanessa's voice faltered. "What?" The video cut to another scene. The kitchen. Oliver in his high chair, a McDonald's container in front of him. Vanessa's voice, off camera. "Just finish those, okay? Mommy has a call." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Turn it off!" Vanessa hissed, spinning toward the projector. "Someone turn it off!" But the video kept playing. The next clip was darker. A bedroom. Vanessa and Connor on the living room couch, his arm around her, her head on his shoulder, laughing. Then, the kiss in the kitchen. Long, lingering, unmistakable. Then, the text messages. The screenshot of Connor's truck with the red bow. Vanessa's response. "You deserve it, baby. Early Christmas present." Diane screamed, a high, thin sound like a kettle boiling over. She dropped her wine glass, and it shattered on the flagstones. Connor was already running. I watched him sprint across the garden, shoving past guests, disappearing toward the parking lot. He didn't look back. Tyler stood frozen. His face was gray, bloodless, like a man watching his own death. Vanessa grabbed the laptop and slammed it shut, but the damage was done. 60 pairs of eyes stared at her. 60 phones had recorded everything. This is a lie," she stammered. "Someone hacked. I don't know how." I stood up. The movement was small, but it drew attention. The crowd parted as I walked forward, my burgundy dress cutting through the sea of shocked faces. I stopped in front of Vanessa. "You banned me for an apple," I said, my voice calm and clear. "You humiliated me in front of everyone for giving my grandson a piece of fruit from my own tree. You called me a danger to his health." I stepped closer. "And all this time, you were the one poisoning this family, with neglect, with lies, with betrayal." Vanessa's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I turned to Tyler, my son, my boy. He was shaking. "I apologized for the fruit," I said softly. "But now, Vanessa, you're the one who owes an apology. To my son, to my grandson, and eventually to the court." I straightened my shoulders. "The party is over, and so is your access to my family's money." I turned and walked away. Behind me, I heard Vanessa begin to sob. I did not look back. The drive home was silent. No radio, no phone calls. Just the hum of the engine and the sound of my own breathing, slow and deliberate, as if my body was reminding me how to exist after what I had done. The sun was setting by the time I pulled into my driveway. The old oaks cast long shadows across the lawn, and the windows of the house glowed faintly with the light I had left on that morning, a habit from when Richard was alive, so he would never come home to darkness. I sat in the car for a long time. My hands were still shaking. Not from fear. The fear had burned off somewhere between Vanessa's scream and Connor's retreat. This was something else. The trembling that comes after a storm, when the danger has passed, but your body hasn't learned it yet. I had destroyed her. In front of everyone she knew, everyone she had cultivated and performed for, I had stripped away the mask and shown them the rot beneath. Her Instagram would be flooded with questions by now. Her phone would be ringing with calls she couldn't answer. The neighbors, the mommy group friends, the carefully curated village, all of them had seen. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt hollowed out, empty, like I had spent every reserve I had, and now there was nothing left but the echo. I went inside, poured myself a glass of bourbon, Richard's favorite, from the bottle we had opened the night before he died, and sat in his study. The leather chair still smelled like him. Pipe tobacco and old books and something warmer, something I could never name. "I did it," I said to the empty room. "I don't know if it was right, but I did it." The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked its steady answer. Done. 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 I must have sat there for an hour, maybe more. The bourbon warmed my chest. The shadows lengthened. I thought about calling Maria, but I didn't have the energy. She would be dealing with her own aftermath, fired, certainly, maybe already packing her things. I would help her. I would make sure she finished nursing school. I owed her that much. I owed her everything. The knock came at 9:15. 3 sharp raps, the kind that can't be ignored. I set down my glass and walked to the front door, my heart suddenly racing. Through the beveled glass, I could see a figure on the porch, tall, broad-shouldered, familiar. Tyler. I opened the door. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 5 hours. His eyes were red-rimmed, his shirt untucked, his hair disheveled from running his hands through it too many times. He smelled like whiskey and sweat and desperation. "Mom," he said. His voice cracked on the word. I stepped aside and let him in. We sat in the living room, facing each other across the coffee table. I didn't offer him a drink. I didn't offer him comfort. I waited. "How could you do that?" he finally asked. His hands were clenched into fists on his knees. "How could you humiliate her like that? In front of everyone? In front of our friends?" "Your friends," I said quietly, "not mine." "That's not—" He stopped, shook his head. "You don't understand. You've ruined everything. The neighbors are talking, people are calling. Vanessa is what, Tyler?" He flinched at the sharpness in my voice. "She's hysterical. She's locked herself in the bedroom. She won't talk to me." "And where is Oliver?" Tyler blinked. "What?" "Your son. Where is he while your wife has her breakdown?" Silence. "Maria has him," Tyler admitted, looking away. She's still at the house, packing." "So the nanny is taking care of your child, again." I leaned forward. "The same nanny who has been taking care of him for 8 months while Vanessa took pictures for Instagram and met her personal trainer at hotel rooms in Charleston." Tyler's face went pale. "Mom, did you know?" He didn't answer. "Did you know, Tyler?" I knew something was wrong. The words came out ragged, torn from somewhere deep. I knew she was, different, distant, but I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to believe that she was having an affair, that she was neglecting your son, that she was spending your inheritance on another man's truck. I stood up and walked to the bookshelf where I had left the bank statements. I dropped them on the coffee table between us. $50,000, Tyler, in 6 months. That's how much she funneled to Connor Briggs, from the trust your father built for this family. Tyler stared at the papers. He didn't touch them. "I trusted her," he whispered. "I know you did. I loved her." "I know that too." He looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw my little boy again. Not the distant, work-obsessed man who had let his wife ban me from birthday parties, but the child who used to crawl into my lap during thunderstorms, the teenager who cried when his dog died, the young man who held my hand at his father's grave. He was still in there somewhere, buried beneath the shame. "What do I do, Mom?" His voice broke completely. "What do I do now?" I sat down beside him. "You fight," I said. "For your son, for yourself. You get a lawyer, a real one, not someone Vanessa picked. You file for custody, you document everything, and you start being the father Oliver deserves. She'll fight back. Her mother has money. I have more." Tyler looked at me, startled. "Your father's trust," I continued. "I'm the sole trustee. I control every disbursement, and the trust has a morality clause. Your father insisted on it. Infidelity, fraud, neglect of minor dependents, grounds for removal." I let that sink in. Vanessa's access to this family's money ended the moment that video played. She will receive nothing. But you, I took his hand. You are still my son. You are still Oliver's father. If you're willing to do the work, I will help you. I will fund the custody battle. I will testify to everything I know. I will be there every step of the way. Tyler's eyes filled with tears. But Tyler. I squeezed his hand hard. If you go back to her, if you choose denial over your son's well-being, if you let that woman anywhere near my grandson without a court order, I will freeze the trust entirely. You'll be on your own. He stared at me. Do you understand? He nodded slowly. Say it. I understand. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. I understand, Mom. I pulled him into my arms. He sobbed against my shoulder like he was 5 years old again, and I held him, and I let him cry. 3 weeks later, Vanessa was served with divorce papers. The custody hearing was swift. The evidence was overwhelming. The videos, the financial records, the testimony from Maria, who had agreed to stay in Savannah long enough to speak to the court. Vanessa's lawyer tried to spin a story of maternal alienation, of a vindictive mother-in-law, but the judge had seen the footage. Everyone had seen the footage. Tyler was granted primary custody. Vanessa received supervised visitation, pending a psychological evaluation. Connor Briggs disappeared. I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that he had moved to Florida, probably to find another lonely wife with access to her husband's money. Diane Carter sent me a letter, 3 pages of vitriol about how I had destroyed her daughter's life. I read the first paragraph, then fed it to the fireplace. Maria enrolled in the nursing program at Georgia Southern. I paid her tuition in full. And Oliver, my Oliver, came to visit every Sunday. On the first Sunday, I bathed him in the farmhouse sink, the same sink where I had bathed Tyler 40 years ago, where my mother had bathed me, where generations of Hayes women had washed the faces of babies they loved. The water was warm. Oliver splashed and laughed, grabbing at the bubbles with his tiny fingers. I wrapped him in a towel, soft, worn, older than he would ever know, and held him against my chest. I promised you, I whispered into his damp hair. I promised I would protect you. And I did, sweetheart. I did. Oliver gurgled and reached for my face. I kissed his forehead. Outside, the oaks swayed in the evening breeze. The house settled around us, full of ghosts and memories, and the quiet peace of a battle finally won. For the first time in 3 years, I felt Richard beside me. Well done, Maggie, I could hear him say. Well done. I smiled. The party was over, and I had finally brought my family home.